In this week's tech news, hydrogen-powered drones, SpaceX's latest valuation, continuing issues with getting AI regulation in place, and why Canada needs to focus more on intellectual property issues. Please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Now let's get into the news.
Well, as reported recently by Tech Radar, global investment in artificial intelligence has already exceeded the inflation-adjusted costs of the Manhattan Project, the World War II effort in the U.S. that produced the first nuclear weapons, the Apollo moon landings, and the International Space Station all combined. And that spending is set to explode in 2026 with an estimated $2.5 trillion forecast for this year, a quarter of which is coming from just 4 companies: Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta.
Now, $2.5 trillion, Jeff, is pretty hard to get your head around. So here's another way to think about it. You would have to spend $1,000 every single second of an average human lifespan to reach 2.5 trillion in spending. In other words, it is a lot. But it's not even 20% more than the amount Elon Musk's SpaceX thinks it should be valued at as it works towards its initial public offering, a valuation they currently peg at more than $2 trillion US.
Wow. And just as a note, we might have to start calling that company SpaceX AI, given that XAI has essentially been merged with SpaceX, and Musk referred to the new company as SpaceX AI for the first time last week, showing that whatever billions he might possess, it's not related to company naming. And just to drive that home, if you're just listening, that's SpaceX AI with all caps for the final 3 letters, which just looks so weird. In any case, there have been calls for the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to investigate what will be the largest IPO in U.S. history, with the American Federation of Teachers saying that the $2 trillion amount, I quote, defies financial logic. And they went on to say it's based too much on the value of Elon Musk's questionable vision for the company, and that SpaceX has revenues of a much smaller company than that valuation would merit.
Well, one way SpaceX AI, and you're absolutely right, that is pretty awkward to say and feels a little bit like space times AI if you read it incorrectly. One way they'll be bringing in more money to support that immense valuation is with its recently announced partnership with Anthropic, which will now use all 300 megawatts of the compute capacity. That is almost 250,000 NVIDIA GPUs at SpaceX's Colossus One data center to help with the capacity problems that Anthropic's Claude AI has been facing with its continued growth.
Yeah, and Anthropic has also said that it's interested in working with SpaceX on Musk's proposed orbiting data centers as well. And keep in mind, this is just a couple months after, and anyone who has followed the continuing saga of Musk's Grok AI, or Mecha Hitler as it used to charmingly call itself, will understand how rich this is. So this is just a couple months after Elon Musk accused Claude AI of being racist. Fast forward to May 6th, when Musk tweeted that, quote, "I spent a lot of time last week with senior members of the Anthropic team to understand what they do to ensure Claude is good for humanity, and was impressed. Everyone I met was highly competent and cared a great deal about doing the right thing. No one set off my evil detector. So long as they engage in critical self-examination," cough, cough, Elon, try that yourself, "Claude will probably be good," end quote. And I, for one, I really didn't even know that Elon Musk had an evil detector, so that's news to me.
This comment from Elon Musk makes me think more and more that he believes that he is living inside of some type of sci-fi metaverse, because I'm sure most business leaders would never say the sentence, "No one set off my evil detector," unless they watched a lot of sci-fi and didn't spend a lot of time with actual other humans in the business world.
Yeah. I mean, he sets off my evil detector, so I guess that, and I'm pretty geeky, so I guess that does check out.
All right. Well, sticking with AI, but hopping back to Canada, 4 federal and provincial privacy commissioners have announced that OpenAI violated Canadian privacy laws while training early models of ChatGPT, including by disclosing personal information without consent and not providing Canadians with an easily accessible and effective mechanism to access, correct, and delete their personal information.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not much of a surprise there, really. It's good that they're calling them to task. And as reported in BetaKit, OpenAI is committing to measures to address these concerns. But Canada's privacy legislation also hasn't been updated in over 40 years. So there are some changes we need to make on our side as well, including the federal government maybe someday finally launching its AI strategy, which we were supposed to have completed by late 2025, I believe.
Well, just a comment on our AI strategy, because I think one of the most damaging the things the federal government has done is to announce that we need to move quickly and announce that they're putting together a task force to focus on this AI strategy, and then at the same time share that it is delayed. I mean, this feels so Canadian to me, Jeff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There just needs to be it's again just so overcautious. And I'll quote once more the best analogy that the if the Canadian bureaucracy were a hockey team, they would put six goaltenders on the ice. That's it. That just captures one of the big issues with Canada, and it's keeping us from succeeding in ways that we are totally capable of doing otherwise.
It's also exhausting. I mean, for people who are looking for leadership and guidance on the AI front, I think all of us who understand the importance of this plan for the future of AI, I mean, we're just feeling exhausted with the fact that it's just been taking so long. And I think that extends to social media in terms of keeping our kids safe as well here in Canada.
Yeah, we all want things to move faster than they do, and it's hard to move as fast as these tech giants are because they seem to have almost infinite money to spend. They seem to have very little regard for other people, and both of those things are definitely not true with the Canadian government. So it's not a very even race, but Canada needs to get its act together a bit better on these things.
Well, we should say that Canada is far from alone in not meeting the moment relative to AI, as the EU is now under criticism for watering down its new AI rules to the benefit of big tech companies, including, as reported by Reuters, delaying rules on, and I'm quoting here, high risk AI systems, such as those involving biometrics or related to critical infrastructure and law enforcement, to December 2nd, 2027, from a previous deadline of August 2nd of this year in 2026. Now, that said, a ban on AI creating unauthorized sexually explicit images, as well as mandatory watermarking of AI generated content, will actually be going into effect in the EU on December 2nd, 2026. So, Jeff, at least they're actually doing something and they have a deadline or a target in place.
Yeah, and those are two important things, the unauthorized sexually explicit images, the watermarking of AI-generated content. That second one, I would love to see more about the implementation of, because I'm not exactly sure how that's gonna work. But, anyway, as we said, governments are slow to do these things, but that's some amount of progress. And on the Canadian side, I just read a totally amazing article in the Financial Post by Louis Carbonneau talking about how part of Canada's lack of success in getting technologies to market is that, very unlike the United States, we lack a focus on intellectual property due to structural, cultural, and institutional issues that he describes. He also notes that, quote, Canada has produced a generation of innovators who can build brilliant technology, but who remain dangerously naive about what it takes to own, protect, and extract value from the ideas behind it. Which, I was the former chair of Digital Nova Scotia, which is the provincial IT association here. That is just undeniably true. So it's important that people understand that it's not that we're not capable of creating amazing things. It's that I think partially because so much of the money comes from government instead of from like private equity, where they actually have different priorities, that we just don't think it's important that you actually go through, and you see this in the cultural industries all the time, where all this funding to get funding to create a movie, and then there's not really the follow through to market it and make sure people see it. And it's that happens all over the place in Canada, and it needs to change.
Uh, just on this topic, before we talk about another tech founder, Alan Lau, who is the brains behind Wattpad, which was sold for hundreds of millions of dollars a few years ago, he wrote a great post recently that I was reading where he talked about this mind shift pivot that needs to happen in Canada, where we need to be thinking less about being suppliers to other big tech companies and more owners in terms of the technology itself. So we're hearing these tech leaders speak up on this front. And we should say that the former CEO of BlackBerry, Jim Balsillie, has been pushing this issue for a long time, saying that, quoting here, Canadian policy remains firmly grounded in industrial era concepts, failing to develop national strategies for IP or for data. And also, the CD Howe Institute notes that Canada produces only a little more than half of the patents it should, based on the quality and quantity of Canadian academic research. So there is some broad agreement on this, and I think people are being a little bit more vocal about it as well.
Yeah, they need to, and this whole article should be required reading for Canadians as it goes through some of the things that make us less successful than we ought to be. And, we're in trying times now. We got to figure out ways to do better, especially when it comes to things like this that are going to bring in money for, Canadians, the staff of these companies, and for government to fund some of the things that only government can do. So, yeah, we need to address those things. But let's close off with a promising Canadian startup story. An Ontario company called Web4U has just been contracted by the RCMP to develop a drone that can fly for up to 8 hours at a time, and it can do this because it's using hydrogen power. The drone maker, who's of Ukrainian descent but has been in Canada since the late 90s, has worked with drone operators in Ukraine, and their war with Russia has given them enormous insights and lots of testing into drone usage. So in Canada, the RCMP would like to use these long-range drones to patrol the Canadian-U.S. border, along with other kinds of remote applications, because, as we all know, we live in a very big, sparsely populated country. So it seems like a really compelling idea.
Absolutely. I do want to just note that they might want to change their name. You mentioned that the founder's been here since the 90s, and then the name sounds a little bit like the 1990s, Web for You. That could use a little bit of wordsmithing to modernize it somewhat.
Don't
Now, up
ask
next,
Elon Musk. He'll call it X for you or something.
fair, fair. I don't think we should ask him too much these days. Up next, we talk to a visual artist from Prince Edward Island about what happened to her Instagram account, how she is rebuilding her almost 40,000 followers, and why Meta might have some explaining to do. That's coming up after the break.